What's going on, YouTube world? Steve, Vinny, and our good friend, returning Jeff Morris, formerly of Pinnacle Pacific, a hobby guru and a friend to the channel. Because if you come back a second time, obviously, we're not throwing out too many vouchers anybody's way to get on screen with us, but a wealth of knowledge that we were insanely happy to have him on the first time. Gonna sort of pick up from where he left off, through the Collector's Edge, then jumping to Pacific. But I'll ask Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and it's great to see your name is Amish Dave Archer, because my fantasy baseball team is called the Fighting Amish, and the only reason that I joined fantasy baseball is so that I can write press releases to the league. Like we announced our new park was Sally Field, and our team uniforms. Actually, the team switched to wearing cloaks made by Fubu. I don't know if you remember Fubu. And we had the first new era brimmed caps. So it was, yeah, I've had a lot of fun with that, but I can't seem to draft a pitcher that'll stay healthy for more than 10 minutes. So, Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom haven't done much for me this year, but so be it.
No, it's been unless you've had one of a handful of hitters, the pitching has been, I'd say, mediocre at best. And hitting, I mean, I'm looking up and down the lineups and I'm seeing people bat anywhere from 091 to somebody's batting 220. That's like the Tony Gwynn or Ted Williams of this season, because there's just nobody. You see people up there batting like 320, 330, but you used to see a glut of those. And this year it's just 205, 212, 218. It's like, ooh, it's a struggle bus out there. And
well, even I've got the Mets. I've got the Mets Brewers game on right now, and Brandon Nimmo might be an all-star. He's having a great year, but he's hitting 225, 230, but he's hitting home runs. He's getting RBIs. Like there's a lot of guys. The stats are so skewed. Hopefully, the guys will play enough MLB The Show on video games, and maybe that way they can learn how to hit a slider in the off season, because you're just seeing guys wipe out 14 batters every game. And by the way, Fubu, the makers of the Fighting Amish team uniforms, actually started a new division for us. It's called FTBT, For Thou By Thou, and so hopefully Fanatics will jump on that. We'll the concessions are great. Cheese curds and the pumpkin farm donkey that brings the pitcher in from the bullpen to the mound. It's the Fighting Amish baseball is really something. It's the next level.
Well, with Fanatics buying everything else, I mean, it's got a good chance of selling. So,
yeah.
We had from last time, Vinny asked this. You had said, and I think it was sort of in conjunction with, like, you guys all being on the same floor in the building in Dallas when you were with Pinnacle. And you had Donruss Leaf playoff there, and like either the same floor or like a floor up.
Yeah, playoff wasn't part of it. Playoff was a separate company at that time.
Okay.
Ann Blake Ann Blake, who was one of the original owners of Score, owned Playoff.
Okay.
And then Playoff absorbed the Pinnacle brands when we had a spectacular bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How was that? I don't want to say a thing, but how did that occur where you guys were sort of like running the ideas past each other, and how did that not? I don't want to say get checked, but I can't. And again, it's sort of an apples and oranges comparison. Like, hey, Pepsi guy, come over here. I'm working with Coke. What do you think of this new Coke? And well, here's our new Pepsi product. Like, I don't want to say it's like sacrilegious to have two companies work together, but you don't hear of it a lot. How did that occur in that time frame? Was it just the proximity of everybody there?
It was it was unusual. I was surprised by it because I came to Pinnacle from the hobby media.
Mhm.
I was recruited. I was the editor of Canadian Sports Card Collector magazine, but I also at that time.
Oh, connectivity issues. No,
Are you
there
there?
he is. You're back.
Okay. Okay. I
Yep,
think I froze there. Sorry about that.
that's all
Um,
right.
the it's our Amish internet
I,
thing.
I know,
We got here.
I know those problems and trials and tribulations all so well.
Yeah. So when I got there, I realized that like Donruss, Leaf Donruss was a Chicago-based company. Pinnacle bought them. Um, moved. They basically let everybody in the company go, except for maybe 5 or 6 people. Um, they brought them down to Dallas. One of those guys is still in the hobby. That's Tom Farrell, who works for Upper Deck Authenticated. Tom left Pinnacle and went to work for Press Pass for years. And he's originally from LA, big Rogie Vachon guy, a hockey guy. And he's another kind of longtime grizzled hobby veteran. Um, so when I got there, it was sort of like, okay, when the guys from Beckett or when the media is coming to visit us, the guys from Donruss all packed up and left and went to our office, which was kind of like a warehouse or production facility in Grand Prairie, Texas, kind of near the closer to the ballpark in Arlington, away from downtown. And that's where all their meetings were because they gave the facade that that's where they worked out of. And it was kind of a funny thing. We competed against each other, but at the same time, you also understood that we were owned by the same company. Our paychecks came from the same place. Um, we always ran brand ideas, product development ideas by each other. We'd sit down as a team and critique each other's stuff. We like if we came up with a good idea, it would be a Pinnacle idea. If Doug Goddard and Tim Franz came up with a good idea, that was going to be a Donruss idea. But there was a lot of sharing of ideas, a lot of back and forth. We were definitely, it's really hard to describe how that relationship was because we were competitive with each other, but at the same time support each other. I went through that also at Shop at Home. Collector's Edge. I went to Collector's Edge, and after Pinnacle's spectacular crash, and Collector's Edge was owned by Shop at Home TV. So Shop at Home not only like I had to develop our football cards plus specialty cards for Shop at Home, put products together, but Ted Barker, who I saw at the Expo in Toronto last week, hadn't seen him in years. Ted Barker was always in because he was with Upper Deck and he was the guy in charge of putting the Upper Deck products together for Shop at Home. So Shop at Home, Upper Deck was a competitor of ours, but they were also a partner of ours because we were selling their products online or on TV. Don West was selling boxes, and of course that was around the era that they came out with golf cards, and Tiger Woods was so big at that time, and so it was an interesting dynamic there. But it was the same kind of thing. I mean, you're competing, but at the same time you're working together. So yeah, Donruss and Pinnacle had a very unique a unique relationship.
Yeah, I wish sort of now that'd be the same thing, the greater good to enhance the hobby for everyone and bring more people in, and hey, the Pinnacle made this card or has this insert or parallel. Oh, that's awesome. Well, over here, Donruss has a cool insert too. Everybody's in the end benefiting, or so it would seem. Because again, it's like, well, we'll push this, but we'll also push this in our sister product, as it were. So
Dave. It's like Burger King and McDonald's being on the same street, working together to bring people to eat more fast food. Who needs a salad? Here, come try our greasy sodium. That's what hey, if God didn't want you to eat our burgers, he wouldn't have made cows out of beef. Like it's that kind of a thing. So the card companies were working together to fight for making a bigger pie, and then let's get a bigger pie, and then we'll fight over who controls that pie. Everybody sort of went after their own niche in those days too. Like Pinnacle's, great to see Bobby Burrell, by the way. Big shout out. Great hobby veteran, really knowledgeable guy. So good to see him on here. When you looked at the hobby back then, everybody sort of went after their own separate kind of thing. And Pinnacle's big thing then was that we were not the hobby monster that Upper Deck was, but we were the retail monster. Pinnacle had more. We sold more cards through Target, through Meijer stores in the Detroit area, through Walmart was a little bit of a different. Nobody liked dealing with Walmart because Walmart only liked to pay for what they scan. So if you gave them 100 cases of a product and 23 were scanned and 77, sorry about the math, 77 went out the back door for internal theft, you would never be paid for the 77. That was the price to pay for dealing with Walmart. I don't know what their, and I mean, we're going back 20 years, so probably all the people have changed. Toys R Us was a huge account. So all those retailers, and then of course you've got the convenience stores, the Circle K's, the 7-Elevens, all that stuff. So that was really the market that Pinnacle went after, and it worked because it although the hobby was very Upper Deck focused, they were a powerful name. We were going after the sports fan who was the casual collector. We were all, depending on the product, we were going after the hardcore hobby collector also. But I think I mentioned last time I was on about how we were so excited about some of the things we were doing in the hobby, and our packaging was very anti-hobby shop friendly. We came out with Donruss Priority, which was a mailbox, a cardboard mailbox, and Zenith had this sloping kind of rhombus-shaped box, and we then we go to visit hobby shops, and then shop dealers would crap all over us. So it's like, I can't stack your boxes. Look at my Topps Stadium Club or Topps Finest boxes, and then what do I do with your stuff? Then you bring these cases of cans of cards out, and it's funny because we're coming up on the next year will be the 25th anniversary of Inside WNBA. That was the first WNBA product, and that was my product, and we chose the Inside brand for it, which was the cans, and it did extremely well, and completely not the market we were aiming for. It was accidental success in every sense of the word, and not to be. And again, I'm just going off on rabbit holes on you here, but not to be incorrect or whatever. Take this as you want. It's just the reality of what it was. I envisioned this as a product that every girl that played high school basketball would want to have. And that was 100% a swing and a miss on my behalf. Where our sales were the 30-something adult lesbians. They bought all of our products. And how that happened was Lori Goldberg, who was our PR person. Lori had connections like you wouldn't believe. She ended up, most recently, she left TLC Shark Week was her thing. I think she discovered Honey Boo Boo and like all that crazy stuff. That was all Lori. She left Pinnacle and became Larry King's executive assistant for his show. And Lori got through some connection. I don't know if you remember Seinfeld. Remember George Costanza had the Score baseball poster behind his bed? That was Lori. Lori made a call, and all of a sudden, Score baseball is on Seinfeld every time they show George Costanza in his bed. Like, how do you pull that stuff off? She was incredible. And the Rosie O'Donnell show was really big at that time. And every single person in the studio audience at one point, Rosie O'Donnell said, "Look under your seat," and there was Pinnacle cans of inside WNBA cards. And Rosie's following went crazy over this, and the WNBA had a strong fan base, and it never even occurred to me, being naive and ignorant Canadian farm boy, it never occurred to me that could be a target demographic for us. And it was a sharp lesson in marketing and really studying who your customer was. But it was a very successful product, and fortunately, it was one of the last things Pinnacle ever did, and nobody really took the momentum we built and continued it at that level with the WNBA. So I don't even remember what the question was in the first place. I just sort of rambling on, but
this is why we enjoy having you here, Jeff, because one question can go a multitude of directions, and we are just literally here enjoying everything that you were saying. So don't apologize for going in 15 different directions, please. This I can't put into words that how, one, appreciative we are for you coming back, and two, you sitting with a bunch of hobby rejects, I'll call us.
Don't say that. I'm one of you guys now. I'm a hardcore collector, and sell stuff on eBay, go to shows,
but that's the thing, we are not always PC, as in politically correct. We are not always the fun, beloved individuals, because we talk about things that other people sometimes aren't willing to talk about. We focus on the negative aspect of the hobby. It's not all positive. As much as what we want it to be, it's not all positive. But, to have somebody like you here and just to go on these multiple different directions based off of one question. I'll speak for the folks that are sitting here watching too. They're all just sitting here soaking it all in. We're soaking it all in.
Well, and again, when I answer that question, that's completely no offense to the LGBTQ plus community. It's just I didn't know that demographic existed 25 years ago. I didn't have any clue that's who the WNBA fan was. I thought it was the 15-year-old girl that loved basketball that played on our varsity team, and I was so far off on that one. It was. But you know what? People were coming in and buying the cards, and it was, Lisa Leslie, for example, from the Sparks, she dunked in a game. They still show the highlights of that. I think in that Spike Lee commercial where he's playing chess. I think they show a highlight of that. And did I tell you guys last time I was on about when Spike Lee came to our booth at the National? The Collector's Edge. He's just standing there looking at this foil cards, and it's like, and I'm like, oh my god, it's Spike Lee! That's so cool. It was fun. There's people that would show up at the Super Bowl shows and ask about cards. It was unbelievable. And if you've ever gone to a Super Bowl show, the flight there is as nasty as a flight to Vegas is. People are just wound up, full of adrenaline, drunk with Red Bull and whatever they use as mixer, and they're just so fired up. It's a horrible place to be on a plane heading to the Super Bowl. You just have you just want to just not be there.
I do have a quick question though, and this is going to be strictly your opinion. because since you went down the rabbit hole of WNBA cards and
Yeah.
coming up on, you said the 25th anniversary, which would put it what, 97?
98.
Yep, 97.
It was 98.
Okay.
So I mean, we started the work on 97, but 98 was the release.
Gotcha. Why do you think it took other card manufacturers as long as what they did to put out WNBA products?
We put WNBA out because we were desperately trying to get an NBA license. And the NBA came to us and said, tell you what, we won't give you NBA, but here, do the WNBA. It was almost like a tryout for us. And my boss was a guy named Greg Bakikio. And Greg and I remain close friends to this day. And Greg was one of the most brilliant people I know as far as reading people and being perceptive. And he taught me, you know, my background was in journalism and communications and a little bit of guerrilla marketing just based on the companies that I worked for. And I remember Greg calling me into his office and he said, I'm going to teach you what marketing is and what your job is. And we're in his office in Dallas. We're looking at his window, kind of around the corner from where Aristotle Onassis assassinated JFK. That got snuck that one right by you guys, right? I used to say that to the Texans all the time. And I know when I die, they're going to say, yeah, it was Aristotle Onassis. It was a crime of passion. He killed the president to steal Jackie. That was 100% right. But anyway, Greg said, let's look out the window. And he said, every car going by, your job is to let them know about Pinnacle products without spending a cent. We want everybody that drives by to know what we're doing, and you don't spend a dollar. And that's basically in a nutshell what marketing was. And then you know that. So Greg called me down and told me. He said, "So I've got a question for you." He said, "Who's the best basketball player of all time?" Thinking I'd say Michael Jordan, right? Like, who wouldn't? And I said, you know what, that's a trick question because he expected me to say Michael Jordan, but I'm all about the doc. But when it comes right down to it, it's got to be Wilt Chamberlain or Kareem. But like, you know, how can he be better than Wilt Chamberlain? I don't care how good Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan is. How can he be better than Kareem? Like Magic Johnson was great, but you know, so I go on this whole diatribe like that, and he says, "Good, right answer. You're the brand manager for WNBA." And I'm like, oh, okay. I knew who Cheryl Swoops was. She was a big star coming out of college. I didn't know who Cynthia Cooper was. She ended up being the best player in the league for the first couple of years. I didn't really know about Lisa Leslie other than that, you know, I'd heard about she was on the Olympic team. So we developed the product, but the whole objective of it was this was a showcase to get us an NBA license. And of course, by the time the WNBA product came out, it was too late. Pinnacle was Pinnacle was on its way down the tubes, and it was unfortunate because I think that was it's taken a long time to have collectibles in the sports of women. In Canada, we are seeing it now because we have the Tim Hortons national food set. Tim Hortons, of course, is massive in Canada. They did a Team Canada just before the Olympics. They did a Team Canada card set where it was all NHL players that play for Team Canada, but also Team Canada women. And some of the women I have gotten to know. In fact, I have a card here somewhere. This is a girl from Ottawa, where I am. This is I don't know if you can see this. This is Jamie Lee. I'm trying to work the. This is Jamie Lee Rattray, and I went to a Sens game with her, and she signed this card for me. And I wrote a story about it in sportscollectorsdaily.com, and she was so thrilled that she is in the same pack of cards as Sidney Crosby. And the Canadian women's team plays hockey against the U.S. up here, and they'll get 15 or 20,000 people now. Like it's a big deal. There's not enough of a fan base to have a pro league for the women yet. I think it'll come, but when when you look at that, it's gone from a generation ago where women's hockey was just an add-on, obligatory at the Olympics, and now the Canada USA rivalry is so intense, it's so great, and it's drawing crowds, and people are collecting. We couldn't imagine a generation ago. Like, think back to that Pinnacle era. Remember, Upper Deck tried a Major League Soccer set that came out in '94, coinciding with the U.S. hosting the World Cup. None of us probably ever imagined that soccer collectibles would be big. Look now. Maybe MLS isn't that big a deal, but like look at some of the European stuff and the English Premier League stuff and Serie A from Italy and all that stuff. Like it's a completely new thing. Ronaldo, like these guys are massive in the collectibles market. You wouldn't have seen that a generation ago, and so things have changed. Things have evolved. Formula One right now, Formula One collectibles are huge. Nobody could do Formula One cards and be successful. Back then, nobody could do Indy open wheel racing and be successful. There was a big market for NASCAR. When hockey went on strike in 2005, they shut the season down for the year. When you go to Target and you have that big red space where all the trading cards are. I don't know if Target's still like that. I haven't been at Target in a couple of years. But NHL lost all of that space to NASCAR, and it took a long time to get it back because NASCAR was big, but now NASCAR doesn't seem to be a factor in the hobby like it was at that time. So things are they evolve pretty quickly. They evolve in ways that I can't even imagine what the next 20 years is going to look like. I think in 20 years you're going to have football in the Olympics, and you're also going to have NCAA women's football, which is going to be really big. I think that's the next two things that are going to happen. The biggest growth sport in the NCAA right now is women's lacrosse, and sports is just taking a lot of twists and turns, and maybe some of these popular Olympic sports like some of these popular sports like all these half pipe snowboarding kind of things, like maybe some of those athletes become household names. Maybe there's a trading card product that maybe there's a multi-sport product that somebody turns into. I don't know. Has Brian Gray at Leaf put any of these types of athletes in any of his products? I don't know. He'd be the perfect fit to do it. But yeah, you're seeing a change in away from just the four major sports and then a couple of fringe things.
I think Goodwin does some of that stuff. Goodwin Champions has like some of the X Games or whatnot, or those type of extreme athletes. And then I want to say maybe Allen and Ginter once in a while has some sort of like insert set. They might showcase something like that maybe every couple of years. But I mean, yeah, that to have some company put that out like, hey, Winter Olympics are coming up. We're going to drop this like end of January, right before the opening ceremonies or whatever. It's like, and they have the mindset, well, it won't be a killer, but maybe, hey, we'll latch on to something here, and you might not know. You might have like a redemption card for, hey, if we can get the athletes together, hey, a redemption card for an auto of whoever wins the gold and figure skating pairs. But some people hey, I don't even care about cards, but I like the elegance and the intricacy of the programs. It's like, I'm gonna go look on eBay for that if I know that's a thing, and I'm just a figure skating fan. Well, harkening back years, but Michelle Kwan or Tanya Harding or trying to think who got hit with the Billy Club.
Nancy Kerrigan.
If you had like a redemption for their auto, it's like that's a huge card back then, and probably would even
and cut it up and put it on pieces of the card, like on Harding's card. I want one for sure.
Have a triple auto of Jeff Gillooly and Tommy Harding and whoever else was with them too. That it'd just be like, oh, that's a you might not want to say out loud like, wow, that I'd like to have that card, but like that was a piece of history. A lot of us know that have been in the hobby for a good number of years. Like I can remember that as clear as day.
It's the Olympics is funny because your selling window would be a year leading up to the Olympics. And so many of the athletes that become stars, nobody knows who they are at that time. And the Olympics is an intense 2-week window, but the closing ceremonies are on a Sunday. And once Monday morning hits, there's no interest.
Yep.
It's dead. And that's the thing that makes the Olympics something that the hobby probably, I mean, it's very difficult for a traditional, like, yeah, the Allen and Ginter stuff like that might have some, the athletes like the gymnast, Simone Biles, like she's got a bit of a non-conventional, non-traditional sport, but she's a household name enough that she does TV commercials, people know who she is. However, something like Tops Now would be perfect for the Olympics. I mean, that would be exactly where the wheelhouse is for that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a funny thing, and it's so popular. World Cup in soccer, I mean, everybody plays in a league, and they're all professionals, so everybody knows them from their club teams. It's like the Olympics when the NHL players are there. Everybody knows these guys from playing for the Red Wings or the Avalanche or whoever. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would trading cards help the Olympics?
I think less corruption would help the Olympics.
Yeah, that'd be the start. Less doping and backdoor shenanigans. That would be the top of the food chain there. But I think the Olympics. I know Topps has done a set, and I think it was a handful of years ago because I remember buying a Rulon Gardner, like a relic piece, and then Mark Spitz on card auto. So I'm like, again, these are names I'm familiar with. But yeah, it doesn't come around. It's not like I don't think there's the huge fan base that would be clamoring for it.
Mm-hmm.
I could be 100% wrong, but I just don't. I think you'd have more products out if that were the case, and I think if more of the companies thought, hey, this is more something we need to have instead of just like every 5-8 years or whatever the case may be. Like we'll put something out, we'll integrate the new folks that have come along in the Olympic world. We'll put them in the set, put an auto, put a piece of their costume on there, the uniform or whatever it is, and I think that's going to be the thing. And like you said, the Tops Now, if you can, hey, whatever, Bodie Miller wins the skiing, the downhill, the slalom, or Shaun White does a 1040 potato sack or whatever off the snowboard thing, and it's like, okay, then you have people buying into that. But I don't know. I don't see the desperation by the masses to try to pick up Olympian cards yet.
There was I don't know if you remember. Well, Upper Deck did a USA Olympian set in the 80s or 90s. I think it was the 90s. Seems to me, I'm just trying to picture the box. It's like a sepia toned Jesse Owens photo, I think, on the Upper Deck box. I think it was from the 90s. Bobby would probably remember that. And there was also the USA baseball sets that came out in the 2000s, the first decade of the 2000s, which my son still refers to as the Zero-Ds. The Bryce Harper card from that USA baseball set is one of the most collectible Bryce Harper cards out there. Yeah, and so you know, some of that stuff has some longevity, but you've got to sit on it for a while and see. You know, it's like when you get a Bowman set, you got to let it marinate for a little bit and see what these guys do. And so yeah, but again, if you were to take an Olympic thing and go sport by sport with different products, I mean, that might work. I don't know. We're way off topic here. Sorry, guys.
What?
That is never such a thing here, Jeff.
No.
There is never such a thing as off topic.
We'll just go back to like the 85 tops baseball, the McGuire USA card in the set. I mean, that thing, it was solid for a while, but then 98 happens and Don West is selling that on Shop at Home.
Oh God, I remember that. Actually, no, the Mark McGuire, Don West. I was there at the studio, and I expected Satan to sign my paycheck the following week. It was that bad because Don West, God bless him. I love working with Don, and Don is such a great guy. And of course, I mean, that was right when Saturday Night Live was doing the spoof on Shop at Home when I think Will Ferrell was Don West in those, and Kenny Golden was they had somebody being, I think Dana Carvey might have been Kenny Golden. I mean, I don't remember, but Don West was selling Pokemon cards, and we had PSA graded Charizard cards, and Don West is like, Charizard is the Mark McGuire of Japanese animation, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going straight to hell. Like this is $69.95 for a graded 10 Charizard. I'd seen it all at that point. The hobby had gone to a dark place as far as I was concerned.
So, what led to you leaving Collector's Edge, and then how'd you get on with Pacific?
This is an interesting story. Collector's Edge went out of business, went bankrupt. All of that is wrong. Collector's Edge just stopped existing. What happened was Shop at Home was a publicly traded company, and Collector's Edge was a subsidiary of Shop at Home. Shop at Home owned Collector's Edge. So Shop at Home was in Nashville, Collector's Edge was in Denver. So I alternated weeks between the two cities. And what ended up happening was Shop at Home was being sold. And as I remember it, I don't know how it quite played out because I didn't stick around for the end game, but Shop at Home was being sold to the Food Network. And as a result, they wanted different programming. They didn't want sports to be part of their new, what they were doing. Shop at Home was we were the number 3 sports or the number 3 home shopping channel. There was the home shopping channel. There was QVC. Shop at Home was like number 3. QVC and the shopping channel, because of the volume they did, because they were so much bigger than us, their magic number for products was $19.99. They could sell anything by the bazillions for $19.99 each. With us, because we did lower volume, our magic number for a product to maximize sales was $99. So I had to come up with something for $99. We would do like a box of new cards plus a Peyton Manning autograph or a Tiger Woods autograph or a Kobe Bryant autograph. Ken Golden set us up with these relationships with these athletes. Collector's Edge would create the cards, and then there would be special autographed cards that would come with I don't remember what we paid per autograph. I think it was around the $12 range at that time. It varied from athlete to athlete, but the perceived value was much higher than that. I mean, our cost was $12, but once we threw it and built it into a $99 product, that autograph card might have, this is 1999. We're talking about. Peyton Manning was going into his second year in the NFL. The perceived value of that Peyton Manning card might have been $50, $60, $70 already. What would people get on eBay eBay was new then. What would people get on eBay if they sold that card separately, or if they brought it to a show, or went and got it graded? So that was sort of our magic formula. And then what happened was, one day, Collector's Edge is just, shop at home, get sold. There's no more sports. Our thing was, we were on the air from midnight to 5 a.m. Just in time to catch guys staggering home from Hooters drunk with their credit cards in their hands, ready to buy whatever Don West was pitching at them. Don West was magnetic. He was like hypnotic to watch. He was so incredible. And working with him, I have never seen anybody do what he could do. There would be 3 different stages. There's like a stage here, a stage here, a stage here. The camera's focused on this one. He's talking about it while he's over here on his computer with somebody talking at him in the same time, and he's giving the full pitch, all of this stuff going on, and he didn't miss a beat. And then as soon as he saw how many dollars per second we were doing, and if it was dropping, onto the next product, and then somebody would show up and pull that product off and get the next one ready, and he would just rotate. But he literally could speak about the product, do his pitch, look at on the screen at the same time on his laptop what our numbers were, and the producers talking in his ear, all happening at the same time. The guy was incredible. I've never seen anyone in my life try to do that. Like, he is like, that was Rain Man-ish what he could do, and a phenomenal guy. Like, I'd meet with him before the shows, and it's like, okay, these are the selling points. This is the product we're going to do. This is what makes it different from the other products. These are the key rookies, and it's like, he would just absorb it and off you go. And he was incredible. The best hobby salesman, I think, ever. The hobby will never see anyone in that platform again that he was. The hobby will never see anybody with his ability ever again. Like, he was just fantastic. And so when Collector's Edge sort of went away, I accepted a job with Upper Deck. I was getting recruited by Upper Deck, and I was going to go and work for Upper Deck Authenticated. And they gave me a pretty good job offer, and I went out to California, and I was a little bit concerned because of the cost of living in California is pretty high, and it's like, okay, where am I going to live? How am I going to get to work? Where are my kids going to go to school? You think about all those things. And then I got a call from Fleer, from Roger Grass, who was the owner of Fleer. And he said, I heard you're going to work for Upper Deck. And I said, yeah. And he said, here's what I'm willing to offer you to go to Fleer. And he threw out this ridiculous number. And as the great Ted DiBiase once said, everybody's got a price. Well, he found mine. So he put me on a plane. I went to Philadelphia. He took me to the Palm Steakhouse and whatever. And by the end of that night, my instructions were, call Upper Deck tomorrow and tell them that you're not interested, and you'll be getting a job offer from me, whatever. So I called Upper Deck, told them, naive as hell, like I didn't realize what was going on. And then, we're making arrangements to move to Philadelphia or to Cherry Hill, New Jersey, or wherever. And about 2 weeks later, I resigned at Shop at Home. And about 2 weeks later, Roger Grass called me, and he started cussing and swearing at me, and he pulled the offer. And so I had lost my job opportunity at Upper Deck, and I had to go groveling back to shop at home to try to get my job back. And luckily, Kent Lilly, who was the CEO of Shop at Home, really liked me, and he was like, "Do you remember on Seinfeld, Jay Peterman, the Elaine's boss at the magazine, Jay Peterman? Do you remember that character? That was Kent Lilly. If there was ever like a celebrity character that was the exact, if they ever made Collector's Edge the movie, the guy that played Jay Peterman would be Kent Lilly. And so Kent let me come back, and then eventually I called Mike Kramer and Bruce Chapelier, who was the VP of retail sales at Pacific, had cornered me a couple times and tried to lure me over to Pacific. And I called them and said, "Listen, I know you guys have talked to me in the past about me coming to work for you. It's like I'm in a situation now where I'm going to be leaving Shop at Home and Collector's Edge, and I'd really like to see if you guys are interested." And a couple of days later, I was on a plane to Seattle. I went to dinner at Mike Kramer's house that night. He showed me his incredible hobby room, and we talked about his 206. There's T206 Honus Wagner. I had actually mail ordered stuff from Mike when I was a kid. I bought cards from him when I was a kid, because he used to buy Topps closeouts, build factory sets, and sell them. I think I got his address through Street and Smith's Baseball Annual. I can't remember exactly what it was. So instead of going out to dinner at a restaurant, Mike was like, "Just come to my house for dinner." And I sat with his family all night, and we had an amazing time. And Mike and I became great friends that night, and they offered me a job the next day. And there was some paperwork to do because I'm not American. It was we had to get a visa, we had to get that stuff worked out, but it turned out great, and I ended up in Seattle.
So, what did you do for Pacific, or what was your title there while you were with them?
I became the VP of marketing, but my job was I developed the products, developed the marketing plans for the products. I wasn't the sales guy, but I was the guy that kind of did all the, I went on the big major sales calls with the distributors, and I did the product pitches, and tried to be my own little Don West. And I was a liaison with the leagues, and we were a small company. It was very like Mike Monson worked with me. Technically, I was above him, but I mean, we worked together on everything. And Mike was a longtime hobby guy. Everybody loved Mike, one of the nicest guys in the world. And so what ended up happening was what a handful of us did took a department of 20 at Pinnacle to do. You wonder why Pinnacle had a spectacular crash and burn. It's because we overspent. I see a question there. What happened with the Fleer deal? Well, the Fleer deal was pulled. He actually called me the C word and pulled the deal from me. That was the kind of guy that we were dealing with there. And it was, I found out later that his whole thing was he never had any intentions. This is what I was told. He never had any intentions of hiring me. He just didn't want me to go to Upper Deck. So I don't know. I've never talked to him since. I don't know if that's the truth or not. I don't know if he'd even remember. I don't even know if he'd even remember me. It doesn't really matter. But it was a cutthroat business at that time, and there were a few people that were very good or specialists, and I think all of us I think of some of the people that were around at that time. I think we all worked for every other company. Rich Bradley worked for Upper Deck, then he worked for Fleer. Tim Franz worked for Tim Franz is still in the hobby at the sales level. He started at Donruss right around the same time I was at Pinnacle, and then he worked for Playoff, then he worked for Fleer, then he worked for Panini, then he worked for Topps. I mean, everybody sort of, you're like NFL free agents. You just sort of bounce around to, or baseball free agents. You bounce around to wherever the offers are. And there's one thing I'm going to backtrack on you about this. I want to show you this because I wrote about it in Sports Collectors Daily, and you might have seen this card on eBay. And I don't know, can you see that? Okay, that's the famous Tom Brady Fleer. What's it called? Fleer Ultra Polychrome Gold Refractor, graded 10 by WCG, and that's the front of it. And this is the back of it. It's a Tom Brady rookie card. Are you guys familiar with that card at all? Because it's funny. I was talking to Rich and Tim Franz about this card before I wrote about it on sportscollectorsdaily.com. But it's a graded 10 Brady rookie parallel that's being bulk sold for like $49 each on eBay. So something should not sound right there. I would think.
Yeah.
So I bought this card at an auction, but the auction was just about to close. It was a local auction. It wasn't here in Ottawa, and I didn't have the time to see what this card really was. But I showed it to Tim and to Rich, who worked at Fleer at that time. I was at Pacific at that time, or was just between Collector's Edge and Pacific, and the card front has incredible micro etching on it, and the back is also this holographic foil. I'll hold it up to the camera again. You can't really see the detail in the etching, but if I turn it around and show you the back, you can see the holographic foil. Nobody in 2001 ever made holographic foil card backs. And Fleer certainly never had a gold refractor because that's a Topps trademark. And Fleer never had anything called polychrome. So somebody produced these cards probably a couple of years ago. WCG did actually grade them as 10. They were told WGC was sold. These were sold, or were told that these were just special cards produced for TV or something. There's also a Michael Jordan Fleer rookie version of that card also. But it's I paid $400 for that card because I hadn't figured out that it was a non-existent card yet. I ended up getting my money back from it, but it was a real lesson that when you're, as the hobby is growing and exploding as it's been, there are going to be some ham and eggers that come in and try to take advantage of people and come up with stuff like that. Had I jumped into this auction a day ahead, I would have looked the card up. I jumped into the auction with 40 minutes left, and I put my proxy bid in, and it was like, back in the 90s. There was they called them Broder cards at that time. There were a lot of fake reprints. There were a lot of fake Gretzky rookies out there then. There were a lot of the Michael Jordans. There's always been fakes. But it was funny that you look back at that time, and if you ever get to see one of these cards at a show or anything, the detail and the production quality is unbelievable. And I remember I called Tim. I hadn't spoken to Tim in years, and Tim was at Fleer, and I said, "Have you seen these?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, like, "Yeah, we never made anything like that." And it's so good. He says, "We just didn't have the technology or the paper to in 2001 we didn't have the ability to make anything like that. And so, that's another thing, like as the hobby grows and it takes so many twists and turns, be careful what you buy, be careful who the grader is, because the grader shouldn't just be grading cards. The grader should also be authenticating cards. Like if you go to somebody that's, PSA back at some of the big companies, they'll know if a card is not legit. So just a little bit of a lesson learned there to collectors, but certainly something interesting that I just wanted to bring up with you guys, because I'm sure some people that are watching this have seen that card. Because if you go on eBay and you just search, Tom Brady Clear Ultra rookie PSA, or not PSA, but WCG10, I'm sure you're going to get it. I'm just looking at Bobby's question here. Lessons to learn from the 90s boom to the 2000 kaboom that might foresee. You know what? Things are so much more responsible now than they were then. But when you look at the 90s, here's the problem with the 90s, and here's why things collapsed. The downfall of the hobby actually started in 1992. It wasn't the mid 90s. I mean, the baseball strike in 94 sucked out probably 40% of hobby sales from the manufacturer's standpoint. But the thing is that the players associations, which the leagues were sort of being driven by the players associations, they had negotiated in the early 90s these incredibly rich royalty deals with royalty minimums. And instead of dropping the minimum guarantees to a reasonable level when sales plummeted, their answer was to let the card companies produce more products. Instead of making 3 card sets and paying us whatever, you can make 7 card sets and pay us whatever. So what happened was the hobby got flooded with product, and it was being produced at a completely irresponsible level, and it was done out of desperation. Everybody was trying to just exist, to make it till the next year. Every card company was fighting for its life. Tops included, Upper Deck included, certainly Pacific and Pinnacle included. So yeah, and then in the 2000s, people just like from 2000 to 2010, that was kind of the downsizing in the hobby was. It took probably till 2015 until the hobby at the manufacturer and distributor level started showing growth again. But it was because the productions were responsible. It was because things were serial numbered. There were no shenanigans. One of the things, and it's funny Bobby mentions that because he'll remember this. The 1991 Expo in Toronto, the spring show, that was the year that the hottest product on the market was Upper Deck high numbers French hockey, and I don't know, you guys must remember that product. It was sold. It was short printed. The production was about 600 cases on it. Upper Deck had no intention of selling that product in Canada. It was going to go to Canada and then be resold back into the States. And it was a case of cards you would sit on as an investment, and it was going to be worth a fortune someday. And the Sergei Fedorov rookie card was selling for about $200 a card. And the first day of the Spring Expo, at the Spring Expo that year, boxes were going for $800 to $1,000. Dealers were sitting around playing poker with packs. And how they were doing it. And I don't remember exactly how much they were paying per pack. I think $20. There'd be 5 guys sitting around. They each have a pack. They open the cards up. You got your 5 cards, and then they pull out a beck, and whoever has the most expensive card wins it all. That was the game. That was the big game that they were playing, kind of in the cafeteria area or the food court area of the show. And I'll never forget watching that. And the day of the expo, the first day of the show, was the day that Upper Deck gave the directive to go back on the press and produce another 1,000 cases. And of those 1,000 cases, certain people were allotted. So many of them, Upper Deck executives, were allowed to buy them at whatever, $400 a case or whatever. People were storing them in lockers. But once word got out that the set was reprinted, even though the production of 1,600 cases was still dramatically low for that era, the fact that they went back on case, it turned that set into a disaster. And it was really funny because that it was ironic that there we were at the '91 Spring Expo. That was the hottest card product we had ever seen. And then all of a sudden, that happens. Topps kind of duplicated what Upper Deck did with '92 Bowman baseball, but they did it responsibly. They didn't reprint it. They limited the case run. I think they did 2,000 cases of that product, which was, again, dramatically low for that era. But '92 Bowman baseball is to me that's one of the cornerstone products in the hobby of the 1990s, because that really set the standard for a card set deep in rookies with limited production. There was no serial numbering in '92 Bowman baseball. And I think, you had Mike Piazza, Cliff Floyd. I can't remember who some of the other rookies set were, but those were the ones that really drove that. So Upper Deck had an incredible idea, but they just got greedy, and God bless Richard McWilliam, R.I.P. But boy, some of the decision making he made was very much the decisions that would be made by somebody who didn't know the hobby. He was a bean counter. He was a business guy. He just didn't understand the mindset of the collector. And I think last time I was on, I talked about how that was part of the downfall of Pinnacle. Jerry Meyer had some incredible ideas, but when it came right down to it, and Michael Cleary did. Michael Cleary was an amazing leader in that company, but when it came right down to it, there weren't enough real hardcore collectors in that company to help it move forward. Playoff was successful because they had some hardcore collector people in that position, and Playoff was able to get through that hump in the hobby because of Dragon Ball Z. Was it Dragon Ball Z they did, or Yu-Gi-Oh? It was Dragon Ball Z. I think Upper Deck did distributed Yu-Gi-Oh. But I mean, at that time, the Pokemon Yu-Gi-Oh Z thing exploded, far surpassed sports cards. That kind of kept everything going for a while.
So Vinny, what do you got to show? I know you're rummaging.
Yes, I'm rummaging. So that's not funny, but this is last time me and the better half, which is my wife, and C went to the card show, and my uncle was in town. They had this. This is High Series English 1991. This is one of the boxes that got me. Actually, it was the introduction of Fleer Ultra Hockey. I tell the story often that really got me hooked into the hobby when I pulled like 4 Mary Lemieux in one day. But that's 1991 High Series English, and there was a French, as Jeff said, version of this, which I have buried in the archives back there, but this was just fresh. I got this at the last card show. When I see it, I got to pick it up. And then what Jeff was talking about baseball-wise, here's the version hockey-wise. So I talked
same design.
Yep, 90, 91, 91, 92. This is 92, 93 Bowman hockey, which I forgot about and jumped right to 95, 96. But this little baby here is like a 500 card set. You have some gold foil cards in here. But the Lemieux out of here, I love the Lemieux. I don't know if it's on the side, but yeah, these are going for around $100 to $200 a box now. The Bowman. There was a dealer, I picked this up for $20. But
to see the Bowman go for that much is incredible because nothing from that era retained its value.
And better half, I didn't pay $200 for it, just so you know. I have to give that stipulation to the wife because she's probably watching upstairs, and I don't want her to stand in that doorway and give me the you paid what? I bought it when the business was not booming. So, but just thought I'd bring those out of the archive to show since we just talked about them.
And if you look at, like, I went back and looked at my 90-91 Upper Deck hockey set. I have it in a binder. And to look at that set, it was so different than anything that came back. But then when you look at it now, the coating is aqueous coating, which is much lower grade than what the glossy UV coating that we saw with Stadium Club and Fleer Ultra and Pinnacle later on. And the coloring is so like the color enhancements that were done digitally on the cards are so extreme that the blues, especially the shades of blue, the hot or the cool colors look so they almost look fake now. And there was a subset. I mean, inserts hadn't been thought of yet. The inserts were still about a year or two away. It was a guy named Don Bowden from Upper Deck that kind of came up with the idea of insert sets, and it started with the Upper Deck Heroes of Hockey stuff started in baseball and hockey, and then when they got into football and basketball a year later, they continued it. But there's a subset of cards that were done by an artist in that 90-91 Upper Deck set. And when you look at, like those are bad. Like those are like that's remedial for something that Upper Deck became known for its incredible photography and coloring. And then to see a card like that, it's almost comical to look back at it now. That's a nice photo.
That back of this 90-91. This is English version, so that's the front. But just look at the back of that card. That photo is better than the front.
Like artistically, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost, dare I say it, fellas, iconic.
My favorite photo on a card when I worked at Pinnacle, we did an Olaf Kolzig card in 97-98, and Olaf Kolzig was the backup goalie, and it was I think it was a game in Buffalo. It was the photo was shot in Buffalo, and Olaf Kolzig was sitting at the bench, and he had a hot dog in his hand, and he had spelled his name Olaf with the mustard on the hot dog, and he was holding the hot dog up to the photographer. And it's you're not going to pull that out, Vinny. But that was that was probably the best photo I had ever seen on a card that we made. There's some unusual ones. I think the last time I was here, we talked about was it Pierre Turgeon or Sylvain Turgeon, the card from
Sylvain, I think, with
Sylvain Turgeon. Yeah, that's it. You did pull it out. Yeah, so it's like he's eating a hot dog on the bench with the word Olaf in mustard spelled out. Like, that's genius. And the Patrick Kane photo of when he's sitting on his dad's knee when Patrick Kane's 7 years old, sitting at a Sabres game. That one, of course, no one would know at that time that, hey, we got a photo of this little kid that's going to be something. It was just a random appearance, but it's fun to look back at some of these photos and for their artistic value.
The funny thing is that thing goes for like $25 on ComC, where I grabbed the photo from. So I want to cite my source first off, because we want to stick to our scholarship on this show. And yeah, $21, $22, $40. All the ring collections, $40.39. So to have that in the ring collection version of Pinnacle, could you imagine it in the artist proof? We're talking big time money
Yeah.
for Olaf in Grey Poupon.
So lead us through, Jeff, like your time at Pacific. Like how, for me, one question I've always had, because Pacific for me, I love serial numbered cards, and I especially love like the premier dates, all the like the extreme limiteds, all these kind of cards where it's like numbered to 24, 38, 47, whatever the case may be. It's sort of a two-pronged question. How was that numbering like sort of come up with? And then for me, it was like you sort of got away from those type of cards, and then the more of like the acetate cards, or the technology cards, as it were. And I know at the time the game use stuff was white hot, because that's what everybody wanted. I get that, but to go from what you guys sort of, or Mike and everybody, and then when you came along, it was, even then it was sort of trickling away from like the, hey, this is a cool die cut with whatever going on, and like some of the acetate, there's like a visor card, I know I just had it somewhere looking earlier, of Madonna, where it had the like the acetate through the middle of the card.
Right.
And it sort of went away from those type of like,
Yeah, those are very complicated cards to produce.
Mhm.
There's 3 layers to them, and that was from I think that was a 98-99 card. Might have been Dynagon. I don't remember.
That one's just straight Pacific. This one's an 01, but I think they actually have another one like that as well. It had been 2 years of that insert.
With the serial numbering, Mike's thing was like, okay, we're making X number of cases. These cards are going to drop, X per case, and however many we make, that's what we're serial numbering them to. If it worked out that there were going to be 517 cards in the case due to our production, he was numbering them to 517. After a while, we started numbering our cards by about 2003 to more standard numbering, numbered to 999, 1599, whatever, because Beckett was crapping on us editorially for it. That the numbers were just too random, and like they thought that it ruined the aesthetics of the card, and that really drove us to say, okay, let's do this. Now then we had the first product with rookies numbered to 99. We did the first product with rookies numbered to the player's jersey number, which was in private stock titanium. We did a lot of things like that. We had a lot of parallels. It's ironic, but when you look at the way sets are built today, it's almost like some of the stuff we were doing 20 years ago at Pacific is being plagiarized. Like they're taking our formula and they're creating sets around our formula. And it's kind of ironic because I was talking to Mike Kramer about the hobby a couple of months ago, and Mike said Mike's sort of following what's going on, and he's like, I'm looking at all this stuff, and it's they're doing exactly what we did. Like it's like they've taken our formula, and to some extent that's true, but the problem is that in the hobby that today that every company seems to have a monopoly, and nobody's coming out with any fresh ideas as far as products. I mean, they're basically taking the formulas that worked in the early 2000s, and it's like, okay, here's your set. There's a bunch of colored numbers, parallels, 1:1, 1:5. Let's get a signature and a swatch on this one. Like it's been done. And when you look at where the hobby was 20 years ago, there were a group of us that were so competitive with each other. I mentioned Rich Bradley and Tim Franz, Dennis May from Upper Deck, Carvin from Upper Deck. I think Dennis at that time was probably a little more involved than Carvin was. You look at like every company had somebody, and we all knew each other. We all kind of hung out at the Kit Young Hawaii show together, and had dinner and drinks together and everything. We all knew each other, but we pushed each other. We pushed each other to try to come up with something really different. The one thing that's different now that I really like is the whole Upper Deck game dated moment or Tops Now cards. That's a really exciting thing. And again, we had in the game was doing incredibly creative, innovative stuff. Fabio Del Rio was developing the products for them. Fabio went to Canadian Sports Collector magazine after I left, and had lunch with them about a month ago, and we were talking about some of the different ideas that we came up with that we're seeing now, and in the game came up with some tremendous ideas. But we were pushing each other because we were fighting for sales. Everybody's got a monopoly now, so nobody's fighting for sales. So that drive is lost. I don't know how Fanatics is going to handle that because every now and then, like you can't just keep status quo, because eventually people are going to get sick and tired of Wander Franco numbered to 5 when it comes out every year and every year and every year. So you've got to come up with new and innovative stuff.
So I want to bring this up to be conscious of time. We've got 13 minutes because we want to make sure we stay true to form for you, Jeff, in your hour and a half. Bobby, we're going to have to hold off on your question. Maybe we can get Jeff back again in a couple months.
Absolutely.
And, we can go over some additional questions that have come through the chat. But I know, Jeff, you wanted to kind of touch on the hockey playoffs and the correlation with some of the stuff that's going on with the hobby. So I wanted to make sure I gave you enough time to touch on that based on before we started the show. Because I think since most of the people here are hockey oriented, unlike me, I'm the football guy. Everybody else is more the hockey.
Yeah, I see all your Denver stuff there. The Avalanche are in the finals. So.
They are. Let's see. What's interesting is the Broncos are the only team in Denver that I root for. Everybody else in Texas, besides the Cowboys, I root for. I love the Stars, I love the Mavs, and I love the Rangers. But I can't stand the Cowboys. So that's the reason why I've got Denver stuff. But I at least wanted to give you ample opportunity to kind of touch on that and put your spin on what you alluded to as it pertained to the hockey playoffs and the going-ons within the hobby.
I think that this year, the hobby is always driven by popularity of players, performances of players. I mean, the hobby's always been like that. When a guy like Wander Franco comes into the hobby, there's excitement about it. When the kid from the Tigers, or not the Tigers, the Orioles, the catcher, can't think of his name off the top of my head. The number 1 pick,
Adley Rutschman.
Yeah, exactly. There's excitement when he comes in. Like there's always excitement, and this year the playoffs really have vaulted some players in the hobby, and if like you don't usually watch the playoffs, and it's like, wow, there's a direct hobby correlation, and there's two extremes here. The first is going to be Jason Lafreniere, or not Jason Lafreniere. I'm thinking 90s. Alexis Lafreniere of the Rangers. When this guy came out as the number 1 overall pick, he was such a big deal that they changed the lottery rule for him because of because of what happened when the Rangers ended up with him. They changed the rule and let him be in the first series of Upper Deck products because he was going to be that big. They needed him to drive the hobby. Alex Lafreniere drove a lot of sales in that year, and he was solely responsible. Like Upper Deck had a whole UDA product line for him. They developed an Alexis Lafreniere card set. I saw it at the Expo. The only new product I saw being dumped was that one. And here's a guy that was supposed to be like when you look at the great players over the last 2 generations of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, he was up there with Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby. And maybe Pat LaFontaine also. Like those guys were Lafreniere was in that category. He is now a third liner. He just and it's interesting because all you heard from the media during the playoffs was, oh, the kid line from the Rangers. The kid line is so exciting. These guys, none of these guys were averaging even 0.5 points per game. They were a collective. You know, they're a third line energy line. And Alex Lafreniere has been nothing but a role player. So all these people that invested in Alex Lafreniere are sitting on this stuff. And is he the Alex Daigle of this decade? I don't think so because again, they talk about the role he took in Game 6. He jumped into the first line. But like Vinny, think about Mario Lemieux's first year. Think about his first shift, scoring a goal against Minnesota, that famous goal. Like he was an impact player right away. Lafreniere, I've seen him play 2 or 3 times live, and he was not noticeable. And so is he going to be a good player? Yes, he'll have a good NHL career. He's got a great upside. I hope he's like Joe Thornton. Joe Thornton didn't do much in his first 2 years in the NHL and then evolved into a star. Maybe Lafreniere can, but for what the Rangers and for what the hobby was expecting, even if he does become a 15-year veteran, there's no way he's ever going to he's ever going to live up to what he was projected to be in the hobby. I think back to when Ryan Leaf was a rookie in '98. Ryan Leaf kept the manufacturers alive for a year because everybody was, most football cards are sold at the wholesale level before the season starts. Everybody was jumping in on Ryan Leaf, and even Ryan Leaf won his first game or 2 in the NFL, and then he fell off the face of the earth. Everybody had kind of made their money and it had cycled through. Lafreniere, it's the same kind of thing. Everybody made money on him, but he's got a long way to go. And is he a guy that can create time and space? I see Stamkos. I don't think their skill sets are at all alike with Stamkos and Lafreniere, but he can be a great player. But will he ever not be a bust? At what point if he becomes a 30-40 goal scorer, will he always be considered a hobby bust because his rookie card graded shot out the gates at $900 when his Upper Deck Young Guns card came out, and will it ever be worth that again? I don't think so. So that's one thing and here's a guy that was front and center for the first time in his career during the playoffs. Igor Shesterkin, on the other hand, proved in the playoffs that he's the best goalie in the world. He didn't win. Vasilevsky is, maybe going to win another Stanley Cup. Will that make him as great as Brodeur and Hasek and Roy? Probably. So let's see if Tampa Bay wins a cup. Let's see what happens to Vasilevsky's cards, because I think he's a bit under the radar still. I think he's a bit undervalued still. That can be something that happens. But Shesterkin is a guy that is like the Rangers. Adam Fox, Shesterkin, two guys to watch on the Rangers as far as the hobby goes. The one guy that really excites me in the hobby is Cale Makar from the Avalanche. And it's funny because I do work with the Ottawa Senators alumni, a lot of ex-NHL players, and Rick Smith, who played with Bobby Orr in the 1970 Bruins. I was chatting with him a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "My God," he said, "I've never seen a player like Bobby Orr since Bobby Orr until Cale Makar was there. Cale Makar is Bobby Orr 2.0. Like, he does things defensively and offensively. He's as creative offensively on the blue line as Nathan MacKinnon is. He just is so good at so many different things. He's such an incredible skater. He's catching Connor McDavid from behind in the series against Edmonton. Nobody in the NHL has ever been able to do that. And here's a guy, and you know, if you guys know your early 2000s hockey, he was actually named after Cale Hulse from the Flames. Vinny, I bet you can't pull a Cale Hulse Flames card out of your collection in 10 seconds or less. But the thing that's amazing is that Cale Makar is going to become the guy that explodes in the hobby because of this playoffs. But as far as how the hobby's changed, defensemen were always second rate. You know, Nicholas Lindstrom is one of the most underrated guys in the hobby of all time. So is Chris Chelios. Denny Potvin, not so much. Larry Robinson, not so much. But when you look at the great defensemen, Ray Bourque, he's undervalued. He's underappreciated. The defensemen never get respect. But when I look at Zubov, there's another guy. Like Zubov was a great offensive player. And Brian Leach was as well. Chris Pronger, and numbered to 104. That's a great Pacific. But yeah, these guys were never top 5, top 10 in the hobby. It was always the big goal scorers. Cale Makar and Adam Fox are changing that, but especially Cale Makar, because this guy, when all is said and done, is going to be right up there with Bobby Orr as one of the top 2 defensemen of all time. There's only 3 guys in NHL history that have averaged more than a point per game. Defensemen, 3 guys in NHL history that have averaged more than a point per game, both in the regular season and the playoffs. Bobby Orr, Paul Coffey, Cale Makar. That's how good this guy is, and he's even better at the defensive end. That's the kind of production he's playing in Colorado. All of his games are the late games. You know, people in the East don't get to see a lot of Cale Makar. They don't get to see a lot of Nathan MacKinnon. Like we just don't get to see a lot. You know, unless you want to stay up and watch 10 o'clock games, you don't get to see the Avalanche a lot. I can't wait till they come to Ottawa next year. I want to see this guy play live, But you know, you've got Kelly Hrudey, who's a CBC commentator, was talking to Rob Blake, and Rob Blake said this guy's as good as Bobby Orr. Like people are making the Bobby Orr comparisons, and Cale Makar is young, and I think that if you are a savvy collector and a big hockey collector, get your hands on this guy's cards, get them graded, sit on them. This guy is the real deal, and we're really going to see that. If Colorado wins the Stanley Cup, Cale Makar is going to be the guy that wins the Conn Smythe Trophy, no doubt. So that's my rant about hockey and the hobby right now.
And it's something where I know some collectors have picked up on it, but there's always we want the Gretzky, which again, the Gretzky, the Lemieux, the Orr, the Hull, anyone from like even the 90s inserts, the Berets, Broder, Waugh, lesser amount with like Sakic, Forsberg. But
look at how good McDavid and Draisaitl are. Draisaitl had a ridiculous. There's another guy that exploded in the playoffs. That series against Calgary, he was unbelievable. And Cale Makar shut them down. And it's like how's I'm excited to see how are the big guns from Tampa? How are they going to handle Colorado? I don't know. Stamkos, we'll see. Will he get that open one-timer? Makar is just so good.
hopefully Point is healthy. That's gonna, if he's not healthy, that's gonna be a huge hindrance. If Braden Point can't play for Tampa, that's gonna
Yeah.
put a kink in their chances. I think huge. So it Stanley Cup. We've said it here before. Even if you're not a diehard hockey fan, that the playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, there is absolutely nothing better, not even close, than watching, especially when you start getting deep into a series. You're playing the same team every other night, chippy, 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 and then finally game 6 or 7, somebody's just like, screw this, we're teeing off because it's a powder keg. So
It is, and when you look at the thing that is really exciting me is I've never seen a year where there's a direct correlation affecting players' performances in the hobby as this year. And when you look at it, like think about the World Series a couple of years ago. Think about it was the 2020 World Series. I mean, I was sitting in a hospital bed watching that whole thing because I was going through my stem cell transplant. And Randy Rosarena, do you remember him in that series? Like he did in that World Series what Matt Carpenter is doing for the Yankees right now. And Randy Rosarena, here's a rookie, and it's like even the hobby, and winning Rookie of the Year the next year, the hobby never really picked up on Randy Rosarena like it should have. And you would think of all times, the hobby being so hot, sports cards being hot, Randy Rosarena doing something incredible. Doesn't matter if they didn't win. Like, look what he did. But the hobby only had a blip. What Cale Makar's doing and what Shesterkin has done, the hobby had a huge reaction to those. And so that's why I think as a collector, it's really interesting to see why this playoffs is different. Even go back around like there was a big interest in the Edmonton Calgary series up here all across Canada. Daryl Sutter's cards. Daryl Sutter is like better than Tortorella in the interviews. Like he's hilarious. He's very blunt and people love him. And all of a sudden, Daryl Sutter cards are spiking. Like it's funny to see sort of, and when you go to a show like the Expo while the playoffs are going on, you can really see the trends and the or the instantaneousness of how the playoffs are affecting everything. So the other thing with that Expo too is that there were a lot of guests from the 1972 Canadian national team, the Team Canada that played the Soviets, and we're 3 or 4 months away from the 50th anniversary, not only of Team Canada but of the WHA starting up too. So there's a lot of exciting old school hockey stuff right around the corner for us, and that's going to be pretty exciting.
It's interesting. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
And I think we'll have you back sometime, maybe early fall, if you're willing to come back on. And
whenever you guys want, I'll no problem at all. I love doing this. I love sitting in here with you guys. Can I show you one? Heads up! That was the first bobbleheads in a. Did we talk about heads up last time I was on? About the Mike Kramer bobblehead doll?
Yes, and so I tracked down boxes of it because I wanted a bobblehead. There is no bobblehead.
Well, you get the retail box.
The retail. It is redemption only. So I'm sitting there. My wife is like, why you look so disappointed? I said, there's no bobblehead. She's like, of course, look at that box. I said, she goes, well, you're an idiot. She goes, it's retail. I'm like, potato.
Hey, I got to show you guys one thing before we go, okay? See, since we brought up Team Canada, so just wait there a sec. You can admire my Ottawa Senators wall I'll be right back. I got to show you something.
this is like my hobby. I don't know. I love
Okay.
this.
In 1982, there was a 10th anniversary. There was a 10th anniversary reunion of the Canada-Russia or Canada-Soviet series, and my dad knew one of the sponsors, and one of the sponsors got a couple of sticks that he put in an auction, and my dad won these sticks for $300, and they're about to become the centerpiece of my man cave. So I'm going to slowly show them to you here. Torspo. This is Team Soviet Union. I don't know if you can see the signatures on here. That's the entire Russian team autograph stick from, where's the blade here? 72. So this is all signed. Now, of course, Harlamov was killed in a car accident, so he's the only guy missing on the Russian team stick from the 72 series. And then with that is the Canadian. Here's the Team Canada. That's upside down or sideways or something. It's kind of weird to do this because the camera's reversed that I'm looking at. So again, it's a Torspo stick, all the signatures on there. My dad got these sticks for $300, signed by the entire Team Canada and Team Soviet. And so that's probably the absolute coolest thing in my collection. But I've got I'm working on a Team Canada, Team Soviet 72 wall that I'm going to have finished in a couple of weeks, and those are going to be sort of showcased in my basement, and that's going to be the kind of centerpiece. And I've got probably about 20 to 25 autographed 8x10s of players from that set that are going to go kind of along the wall beside the sticks. So as a collector, I just get real excited about stuff like this, but I wouldn't even venture to put a value on sticks like that now. But to think that my dad paid $300 and it's like, my dad's like, I got these sticks for you and I paid a fortune for them. I paid $300, and I'm thinking now like, oh my God, like for $300.
Maybe you can show it off next time we have you on. Maybe by then you'll have a chance to have it done, and you can premiere it to all of us.
Yeah, maybe.
That would be awesome.
Don't tell anyone where I live, though.
I have no idea where you live. We have no.
Yeah, I better get the security system going. But yeah, it was really exciting at the Expo to see a lot of Team Canada Soviet memorabilia. I mean, that was such a big. I mean, to you guys, I can't even explain the magnitude of that series. What I told people at Pinnacle was it was the Canadian equivalent of Man Walking on the Moon or Kennedy being shot. Like, it was that big of a deal that the country just stopped. And I remember too the very first game, Canada lost that game 7-3, and it was like a national tragedy. And it happened the same day that the Israeli athletes were kidnapped at the 72 Munich games. And I remember sitting with my dad and flicking the channels back and forth. And of course, flicking the channels back and forth back then meant manually getting up and turning the channel because we only got 3 channels. And it was a black and white TV, and it was certainly different times. But anybody that's old enough to remember that series, I was 8 years old when it happened, and nobody will ever forget it that saw it. And I can only imagine. I have a few Paul Henderson autographed cards that we did at Pinnacle, and I can only imagine the interest in Paul Henderson memorabilia. And hopefully Paul Henderson will end up in the Hockey Hall of Fame someday. It's a joke that he's not. So anyway, that's all I got for tonight, guys. It's hope that was fun. Hope you guys listening had some fun too.
It's like you said, it's an absolute honor for us just to listen, because your depth of knowledge, your depth of, and it's like with us, when we tell a story, it's not we're going down a straight hallway. There's a turn, there's an exit, then we backtrack over this way. But that's what we like, because we'll eventually get to whatever we're talking about. But we love the stories that we think of along the way of the original story.
Mhm.
And you being in cards and being a sports fanatic, and just you're one of us, and that it's natural conversation. It's not forced. We're not prying and playing to some other entity or some money grubbing. We just want collector based conversation with somebody that's been in the hobby for years and decades, because that's what we've been in. We've not to that level, but it's to think, and we've talked privately about this, to think that we're at any point during our hobby run that we would talk to somebody in the hobby and form a kinship, a friendship. Not even my wildest dreams when I'm ripping the Pinnacle back in 96. 25 years later, not even on the horizon. And it's just, I want to thank you. And I don't want to speak for the guys, but I know they're in the same boat. It's like you taking your time for us. That means a lot. That means the world to us.
Well,
We are the hobby.
I appreciate it. The working in the hobby was just like a dream come true for me for my whole life, and I was sad to leave the hobby. I was sad to you know, the way things ended. I mean, the hobby downsized, and there was just no room for me there anymore. But you know, like at the Expo, you know, I spent some time with Mike Gardner at the I spent some time with Mike Gardner at the Beckett booth, and you know, got a bunch of cards graded. But Mike was a VP of sales at Upper Deck when I was at Pinnacle and then Pacific, and you know, we became good friends. And again, you know, rival companies, but we were all friends. There were no enemies I mean, Richard McWilliam had some enemies, and I'm sure that you know, some of the other people did too. But for the most part, everybody in the industry was just wonderful, and we all had the same passion for what we did, and I loved going to shows because people would buy boxes and they'd bring them to our booth, and I was so excited to watch them open boxes. And just like you know, I'm a collector at heart. I've always been a collector. I never stopped being a collector, and to have been able to work in the industry and do what I did was every day was a dream come true, and I would give anything to be back working in the hobby again at that level. So. What's that? We stole his favorite chicken sandwiches. You know what? You know, you're expecting me to say Popeyes or one of those like high end ones, but the junior chicken at McDonald's is not only the best hangover food, but it's the best value on the McDonald's menu. So I'm going to go off the table and I'm going to say the junior chicken. So it's like, what, $1.49? Like, you can't beat that. But anyway, yeah, I hope that you know, I'd be glad to come on with this, and you know what, I mean, I'm really excited. The one thing I'm really excited about coming out is Mike Kramer is just about finished his book. I hope that that's out by Christmas. His book is going to be about the American dream that he lived, of, you know, how a crab fisherman became you know, a CEO of a sports card company, and you know, changed the hobby in so many ways. I mean, when you talk about the American dream that this hobby created, Mike Kramer, there's no better example. And what I loved about Mike Kramer is that he was a collector. He is a collector, and he treated the hobby with the respect that a collector had. There were no shenanigans, no nonsense, no reprinted anything. Everything was above board, and the integrity of the hobby was the most important thing for him. And I learned so much working for that guy, and I admire him so much. And I'm glad we reconnected as friends, even though it's under, we reconnected because we're both going through cancer treatments at the same time. So it was, we're just sharing our notes through email and messenger from different ends of the continent. But what a wonderful guy, and I can't wait to see his book. It's going to be one of those books that is a must read for anybody that collected cards over the last 20 years. So.
Thanks for letting us know it was in the works, because I'm definitely gonna be looking for it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be probably the biggest book the hobby's seen since Pete Williams wrote Card Sharks in the 90s. I think it's going to be great. So yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really had a great time, and really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Absolutely.
Enjoy the finals.
Oh, if Edmonton was here, I'd enjoy it more, but.
Thanks again, Jeff, for joining us.
Okay, not a problem, guys. And Dave, you got to do something about that, eh? He's got the Jim the Anvil Neidhart thing going, kind of like,
He's sticking true to the Amish theme, Jeff.
Yeah. You don't get pieces of egg stuck in that in the morning or anything, do you?
That's why I carry a comb.
There you go. Okay. It's the playoffs, right? You got your playoff beard. If I tried to grow one of those, it'd be like a soccer game. There'd be 11 hairs on each side. There's no way I could pull it off. All right. Well, have a great night, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks,
You too.
Jeff.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and drop him down so he can exit out. Again, and I know he's still there. He can hear us, but man, this is like I'm telling you, like my hobby heaven. just listening. I'm in awe.
I read something this week that said it's all about the connections. And the way it was written, it's like to get cards and all this stuff. And, thinking about it, none of that, it's absolute rubbish. To have a person now that considers them a friend of the quote unquote channel, in Jeff, to be like, yeah, I'll do it anytime. It's like we're living our dream of when we were kids, that we hang out with the people in the hobby that made the cards that we collected. It's hard to imagine, and then we get to share it with all our buddies on the channel. It's like, what more do you want? All I'm waiting for is an insult from the better half, and this is just a full circle night of wonderfulness. It's like, come on. I mean, who could beat this?
Well, it's one of those in which, and I'm probably speaking for you guys. It's one of those in which, like you said, Dave, there's no hidden agendas. There's no. It's us really just letting him take the stage and take it where he wants to take it.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't scripted. Then again, this show has never been scripted. If you haven't noticed, if you think it's scripted, then you're obviously missing the point. But to give him the opportunity just to talk.
Mm-hmm.
It's not question after question after question after question after question, where it's like you have 2 minutes to answer. No. If you want to take this question 15 different directions, the floor is yours. This is your show tonight. We are seriously just here to try and, reduce the downtime in between once you finish telling something to kind of keep the conversation going. Outside of that, this is your show, man. And I honestly, I think he enjoys that aspect of it because we follow his rules. He wanted an hour and a half. He went a little over.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those in which I noticed it was getting close, and he specifically wanted to touch on that. So I wanted to make sure he had that opportunity to be able to touch on that. But I thoroughly enjoyed these types of shows. Because we don't have to talk a whole lot, which is even more enjoyable. No offense, guys.
For everyone.
Yeah. But two, we all get an insider's view of what it was like because, I can't speak for everybody, but there were times early on, it's like, it would be so cool to work for a card manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
Come up with, some of these ideas and stuff along those lines. That was like the dream job. And of course, as I got older, it was like, yeah, I'd rather own a card shop. That's what I picture myself doing in retirement. Still have to be able to do something, but
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you're still enjoying doing because I hope to still be collecting when I'm in my 60s. But just to give him the opportunity, just to talk. We don't interrupt him. I appreciate him always like apologizing for going on. It's like, no, you don't understand. You fit in perfect with this crowd here. You're one of the guys. You're one of the guys. But I was pretty pumped when I found out that he was coming back. I had a feeling it was him when you were kind of putting out feelers to Vinny and I, whatever it was a few weeks back or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, you never know with you. Sometimes you pull a rabbit out of your hat, and it could have been something different. But uh, and knowing that he's willing to come back again, that's freaking awesome. I just even if we could have him on every 4 months or whatever,
Yeah.
that in itself is just an enjoyable conversation. And at some point, we could probably get to where we have an opportunity to show cards, not just us, but even him. So that's something to think about as well. But this was another. I'm on like cloud nine again.
A better half, he shares your love of the McChicken sandwich from McDonald's, since that's one of her go-to cheapy sandwiches.
A crispy chicken sandwich.
McChicken.
I know. But then again, depending on where you are, it could have a different.
He called it a junior chicken, so I thought he was talking about Wendy's for a second, which is also a delectable cheap sandwich for the price. But I digress.
Yeah, up in Canada, different nomenclature, perhaps.
Yeah, see, that's. I said it first, Dave. You thief! Damn you!
Maybe.
Speaking of cards, it's time. Jeez, what, you weren't satisfied with the one Chris Pronger that Dave showed earlier? And I saw you bring out the Donruss Preferred box. Isn't that what that was, Dave?
And my brain just not working like it hasn't been lately. So I'm like, shit, this is Donruss. But I don't even want
Is that a super or silver? Silver.
gold.
Gold. Oh, it looks silver. Then again, my eyes may be getting bad. So Bobby, make a note because we'll probably forget. When we have him back on, make sure you ask that question, because I think a lot of us would be interested to hear, if he knows anything. related to, since all of those companies are non-existent. Kramer probably has a lot of that stuff, I would think, because him being the owner, he probably has all that stuff tucked away somewhere.
But if I remember right, because again, Northcutt and Collins and McCown were in a handful of sets. There was a seller out of Michigan that I do remember on eBay that had all these like proofs and in the name of the Leximo. They had, it seemed like a never ending, where you had like the 2-card panel, like maybe an Antonio Bryant rookie with Josh McCown. Maybe it was Josh McCown and Lamar Fletcher. I mean, it was a mix and match of this stuff. And I do remember some of the slides, some of like the little negatives, like encased in like the Fleer, what was Snapshot 03. They had like the little old school, like the white border, where it was like the harder border embedded in the card with the negative, and they were autoed. But Pacific, they'd have this stuff just alone, and it'd be a bunch of different slides or whatever. So I don't know. And again, that one maybe he'd know, like if some of this, because I remember like there was the big sale of the Pacific stuff eventually, but I don't know if that was out of necessity to pay creditors, or it just left a sour taste in his mouth. And you know what? I'll keep what I want. The rest, poker, all in. Go do whatever you want.
Yeah, because Fleer was to settle debts.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I don't know who had access to the auctions, to the bankruptcy auctions,
Mm-hmm.
but my guess, because my old card shop owner ended up getting access to some of the stuff. Now I don't know if he got it through secondhand, third party, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I would think, maybe they limited it to certain dealers, diamond platinum members like they have for Upper Deck or whatever, to gain access to bid and purchase some of that stuff. But we all know that Fleer, it was all to settle debts. I mean, that was at least that's what I heard. Now, I'm sure that should be public knowledge, but we know that based on what Jeff shared last time at the tail end of our conversation, they came over to them and pretty much told them, sorry, you guys drew the short straw, you're done. Mm-hmm. And then after that, of course, basically Pacific went away. So that kind of sucks because like the two of you, Pacific still is Pacific and Topps Chrome were the top two on my list and have been for forever, and nothing has been able to remove those from the top of my list. And they're code number ones. It's not 1, 2. They're my code number one as it pertains to product, manufacturer and slash product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pacific, and then Pinnacle / Score. Those have always been stuff I've gravitated towards. Some of that, the 96, 97 Collector's Edge, because a lot of people haven't seen it. It's not like I could find it after the fact when and again, I've seen these boxes people still have the boxes from that time frame with like the 1999 or $29.99 sticker on there that you could buy at Kmart. And you just sit there, like I've mentioned the story, the 96 Upper Deck. I was able to get 97 Collector's Edge Extreme for I think $19.99. I bought like 4 boxes of it. And so this was the first time, and this was like 99, 2000 when I got this. So I mean, you'd seen the Beckett, and it's like, oh, this is cool, Marauders and Force and Fury and all these inserts, and you're like, where the hell was this? When we were throwing money at cards, even more so with whatever paper routes, jobs, whatnot, mowing lawns, shoveling, doing whatever you could to scrape up some money. Where was this stuff when we were doing that? Because I believe this would have been a lot of the money I would have been throwing that way, or a lot of my money would be going that way, because just it's so cool. I mean, you have, okay, the base stock is pretty meh, but then you start getting to the acetate, or the not the acetate. You had some acetate, but you had more of the 92, the 93 Collector's Edge stock, like that, whatever it's called. But I mean, it's the stuff that doesn't bend unless you actually just snap the card. So it if that stuff was around, we would have spent money on that. But I mean, that was the time. You had so many options. You had so many cool, different cards in every set. It just wasn't like, oh, there's a Atomic Refractor in Bowman's Best, and that's like the coolest card in the set. It's like, no, you had the mirror image atomics. You had for baseball, you had the inverted mirror image atomics. You had a lot of stuff, and then the refractors are cool too. And the what was it, the best cuts, where it had the die cuts. So, I mean, and I'm glad he said it too, that like a lot of people are copying their stuff and just like everything overall, because there will never be, as Vinny tries to kill a bee or something. There'll never be an era like that for cards again. I will write that down as a guarantee. There just won't, because you don't have the people that care about the cards in the non-monetary world as we did, as we do.
You don't see that anywhere else.
No. You ever. Vinny gets a bee in his bonnet, one way or another.
Or a cupcake with frosting or something. Whatever it was.
Pie-faced. Yeah, it just, I don't know.
Yeah, we know, Bobby. Good combination. Jeff Morris and Slapstick Vinny. But yeah, it was.
It's good for our night too. I mean, that's a perfect way to end it. We chatter a little after that, and
We'll wait for Vinny to come back before we wrap up shop. But yeah, I really don't have the words to really express the appreciation and the gratitude for him, taking the time out and sitting here hanging with us. I mean, in a sense, like I said, we're the hobby outsiders, so to speak, because we don't fully focus on the good side of the hobby, and we speak our mind, and sometimes we have the adverse opinions of others, and but that's who we are, and that's not going to change to please anybody. And I don't give a crap if Fanatics came and offered us a sponsorship and paid us a shit ton of money to clean up our act and everything else. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. It's not. I'm
No,
not.
no,
We are not corporate sellouts. It's not going to happen.
we're not gonna pimp Perfect Fit or whatever they're called now. We're not gonna pimp eBay, or we're not. You're not gonna see dumbness. So we can go fly to card shows every weekend and not have. Would we like that? For
Yes.
I want money, but I'd rather have the winning of Powerball at like 900 million, and then yes, there we are. But I don't want to have eBay. Oh, here's a ticket, but you still have to do your other job like that. No, that's more stress.
Yep.
So it's not. It's nice to not be beholden to sponsorship or constantly pandering to a particular audience that expects like clean cut and by the letter. Like tickling the hairs of a chinny chin chin.
Oh, such an interesting way to end the evening.
I said what would make us come full circle, but some entertainment for the better half. And here we are.
Paul earlier said that we started earlier. We're not on brand. Well, Paul, again, we're on brand now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time before we circle back to it. I mean,
Yeah, come on.
we
You
wanted
want-
to make sure we took full advantage of the amount of time we had with Jeff. That's the reason why we actually started on time.
And actually early.
No, what's up with that? Did Hal
We
freeze
had a-
over somewhere?
No, good try, better half. We had a guest, and that's we
I know I was present for a few minutes.
we have to be respectful. I know
No,
that
he's had soccer.
it's off brand.
I'll leave you alone now.
Thank you.
I better have.
On your nose.
Anyways, Dave, wrap us up.
Whoa. Wait a minute here.
What?
Read the private chat.
Oh. Okay. Never mind then. I did find the cards I lost 2 weeks ago, though. So the cards I showed. So now I feel better about life.
Where were they?
I took them out of the container and sat them down to organize them, and they got.
Oh, just like everything else that's organized in that basement.
That's where it happened.
What happened?
Continue, Dave. My bad.
No worries. Obviously, a huge thank you to Jeff. Again, it may sound redundant, but for people we hold in high esteem to give us the time that, like Steve said, it literally is like we're kids. I used to make, I know, a notebook, and I don't know what grade it was, fourth or fifth grade. I just had a notebook, and I tried to make baseball cards, design them, and I still, if I were bored in life, I would do stats. I used to make up stats for a made up baseball team, but use like players of the era. It's just something that I enjoyed. I'm sure other kids out there, I'm hoping, created fake baseball cards or just doodles of it. So to have somebody that actually was in the business and made a lot of the stuff or had hands on, not experience, but he was an integral part of the production of said cards that are some of our favorites. And that's not just blowing smoke up his ass and because he worked for Pacific and Pinnacle. It's because it's the truth. It's, again, I don't know how to equate the feelings. It's just it's insanely exciting, and you don't feel like it's real. Some people, again, if they meet a Tom Cruise, meet a LeBron, I mean, yeah, that it'd be cool. But that's, for me, I wasn't a big movie guy. I know Vinny might be on the shoe might be on the other foot, but cards, sports, and music to a degree. Those are the things that I'm like really, and wrestling, of course. Those things are the things where I get excited when I meet somebody, because it means so much to me. Because it's, again, nostalgia driven. So with that, thank you, Jeff, for coming on. Thank you for everybody in the chat who watched it live. Maybe you're catching it, the replay and archives. Just thank you again. I'd say send money, but crypto seems to be down, so the crypto wallet has been yanked. Its sponsorship is null and void. Bitcoin and Ethereum are down quite a bit, so send F1 on open wax.
Right.
So, for Vinny, that's Steve. I'm Dave. This has been the Instant Revolution podcast. Remember, collecting cards, it's a fun journey. The friendships that you forge along the way, that's what it's really about. Good night, everyone.
And everybody.